Like most Australians, when I come back from a trip overseas, I'm struck by our Aussie accent. As a career specialist though, the issue that I worry about when I'm working with a client is what I call the dreaded rising intonation. In English, we raise our voices at the end of a sentence to tell the listener that we're asking a question. That's rising intonation. Unfortunately, here in Australia, we've mastered the act of raising our voice this way at the end of every sentence, regardless of whether we're asking a question or not. Who cares, I hear you say. Most of us fall into this pattern at some time or another, especially those of us who live on the east coast of Australia. It also tends to be more common with young women and with Gen Y. There are two areas where constantly sounding like you are asking a question can damage your career. The most critical is during interviews. After having worked with so many people in interview role plays, I've found that most people will show at least some signs of it. Perhaps it's the stress of being the sole focus of attention when talking about their work behaviour, so I don't get worried about the occasional use. The issue becomes damaging when you talk this way too often. Just look at the following examples. I've always had strong leadership qualities. People have always enjoyed working with me. I've always had the ability to influence people to get them to come on board with my new ideas. If you answer this way, you sound as though you're questioning your own abilities. All of a sudden, your convincing, interesting work story that is supposed to prove that you have a critical skill loses its punch. If you have a hesitant delivery style, in addition to the habit of rising intonation, you're probably going to raise lots of doubt in the minds of your prospective employer. They're not likely to analyse just what it is that you're doing that worries them, but you may still find that you miss out on the job because it's gone to someone who just sounded more confident, more sure, more capable than you. But rising intonation is just one voice issue for you to think about. I can remember working with a young female lawyer some years ago now. Her voice was quite high-pitched, and she did, unfortunately, raise it at the end of almost every sentence also. I often wondered how easy it was for her to convey the necessary level of authority in her day-to-day work with colleagues and clients. A statistic that is often quoted is that nearly 40% of the impression we make on a stranger comes from our voice. Yet when I work with people and ask them whether they think their voice is an asset or a liability, they usually say they've never thought about it. So I put it to you, do you know whether people like listening to your voice? Is it high-pitched? Do you sound too nasal? Do you have a delivery style that puts people to sleep? It's actually easy to find out if you have any worrying voice issues or not. Just film yourself on your camera. Or else, think of somebody who's likely to notice and ask them for their feedback. Then it's usually a matter of a lot of concentrated work. I found it takes me about 6 months to get rid of a bad voice habit. It is fundamentally simple. Find a trusted, astute friend, ask for feedback and start making the changes. And then you'll be on the front foot for your next job interview.